Audience, it's Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. It's 12 o'clock. And as I told you on my YouTube channel, video diary, video documentary about my 1994 Chevy Astro van, I'm putting a remanufactured engine into it from Powertrain Products. I had no oil pressure using this OEM tool 27060. Now the object is to prime the oil pump, but I would have expected pressure using this tool. Now I gave up with the tool and I put in the distributor and I had perfect oil pressure. So tell me what the difference is between this tool and that tool. This tool from OEM, it fits perfectly but there is a difference diameter of this piece here, and I don't know if I can take this off or not without killing the whole thing. But the diameter here is 31 millimeter, I measure, and there is a difference here. But this one gives me oil pressure, and this tool doesn't. So I'm going to call OEM Tools and ask them, because they say this is rated for GM V8 V6, used for turning oil pump shaft so the pump will circulate oil through the oil passages. Well, without pressure it won't. Preventing dry start. Dry start usually causes permanent damage to the engine and void the engine warranty. So anyway, I didn't run it, but I did use the distributor to get oil pressure and prime the engine. So this tool, although albeit inexpensive, I bought it at AutoZone. It's too late for me to take it back unless they hear my sad story. But I'm going to call the OEM Tools when I get a chance and say, hey, you know, you need to revise or update this design because this is not working on all of I've got an RPO L35 VIN-W engine, 1994 V6, and there shouldn't be any difference between the GM 4.3 liter V6s over the years. But anyway, this is what I discovered, so I'm sharing it with you. Now, in the past, and it's 12:03 on the 27th of August 2024, it's a Tuesday, I said my motor mounts weren't deteriorated. That's not true. They both were deteriorated. But the passenger side one was worse, much worse. See how bad that chunk of rubber is. Whereas the driver's side was not so bad. And I'll share a photograph of the part number for the ones I got from Napa later. But I did want to go through the spare parts I have for my 94 before I get on to the next thing, which is installing the bolts to attach the torque converter to the starter ring or flex plate, whatever you call it. Anyway, here I have a computer. And I got this from a salvage yard, F for Flamingo Auto Parts in Homestead, Florida City. And the difference is the chip between them. And you need to move the EEPROM, and it's pretty easy to do. You take these two screws off and you unplug it from the old unit, plug it to the new unit. Or you can go online, and there's plenty of companies that sell refurbished computers for automobiles. It's actually a big thing. One company in particular basically does everything, but you can look that up online if you need a computer. Anyway, I tested this one. It's a good spare. I put the original one back in, so I have a spare. I have all kinds of other parts that I had replaced, so I kept the old ones because they were good, like this sensor. This is a map sensor. They tell me the Desno sensor is the best. They say these other map sensors are funky, and the O2 sensors can be. Something about being incompatible with the computer due to an impedance mismatch. Now, I'm an electrical and electronic engineer, and I'm out of work looking for a high-paying gig in aerospace aviation using my FAA qualifications on ILS, VOR, NDB, NavAids, automation, remote maintenance monitoring, you name it. I really like RMM. I like to install it and then validate it to the control center and monitor all these things in the air traffic control system that we need monitored. Anyway, I got a whole lot of good parts, like this AK-11. This is standard, and this are the two lines that go to the CPI from 92 to 95. And we got some associated van repair parts. Now, I have a couple IOUs that I owe the audience. People in the groups asked me for stuff or where to get it, and sadly some of it you got to go to salvage yards, and that's what I did. And I had to get some really good stuff from salvage yards, and who knows how much of it is left after it's been picked clean. But I have all kinds of parts and sensors for every, and the old stuff wasn't bad, so I kept it as spares, except the wiper motor. This you should replace as an assembly, including the circuit board, because it's safety, and you can't have a funky windshield wiper. And somebody did a movie about that years ago, where the wipers quit on a mountain road on a snowy, and the guy lost his life. The actor, I mean, you know, it was in the movie. Anyway, I have all this stuff, but the thing I promised, I got to go to the other bin. Okay, this is the little gem on the Dutch door, and this is a protective unit, and I got a part number here, made of Canada. Part number is 22523441, and I'll take a picture. But this is a safety thing, so you can't open the rear Dutch doors if there's a problem that is detected by the system. And this opens, you know, if this is bad, you can't open the hatch on the Dutch doors. So that has to work, and it's a pretty simple circuit. So I'll open that up and take some video of that later, like I promised the gentleman that wanted the information. And now this is your airbag sensor that goes on the mid frame. It's got a big yellow connector on it so you can see where it is on these. Mine's a 94, and I had to replace this because the computer was saying it had a bad diode inside, and it's a very expensive part. So, or used to was, I don't know now. But anyway, I went to a salvage yard, got one, plugged it in, the code went away. But now the code is back. Now, the significance of this is the code for this is very similar to a problem with the 4L60E transmission. And I actually went to a transmission shop, and they said, well, the scanner says the transmission's bad. And I pulled out the factory GM service manual and showed them the codes, and said, no, 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 that's the code for this gizmo, for the airbag. It has nothing to do with the transmission. So then he went on to Mitchell 1, and he had to have sharp eyes to notice the difference. And I called the manufacturer of the scanner, and their technical support was arrogant, and it's a major company too. They were arrogant hearing from me that they had miscoded something. So they faxed me a bunch of sheets from Mitchell, which is the, you know, one of the gold standards for technical information in the automotive industry. And I circled it back, sent it back to him, said, see, it's a airbag code, not a transmission code. And in the OBD1 system, you can select your codes for your ABS or your codes for the transmission or the codes for the vehicle. Now, one of the things I keep yammering about on my posts on social media, is the BTSI. This is a safety feature, and if this thing burns out, you can easily unplug it if you're on a road trip. If you can figure out where the connector is, ferret that out. It's under the ignition switch, and this is an important safety feature because when this solenoid is energized, it prevents the vehicle from starting. So that's important. You don't want to start the vehicle in the wrong situation, and it has resulted in deaths. That actor on Star Trek, the guy that was playing Chekhov, the new Chekhov, and he got crushed between his Jeep and his gate because, you know, he accidentally left it in gear, I guess. So anyway, this BTSI is not all that hard to replace if it does fail, but it blows the fuse for the power for the window, PWRWDO, which on the 94 Astro also gives you power for the transmission, so the transmission goes into limp mode. I had to drive from Fort Pierce to Orlando in limp mode, and the next morning, because it was late at night, and I had to have my kid in Gainesville at University of Florida the next day for a class selection. So in the morning I took it to the GM dealer and said, hey, I'll pay you whatever, and the guy reached up and you know, it was blowing the fuse every time we put it in. He reached up and unplugged it, and he says, you got to get this replaced ASAP, because they didn't have the part. But I was able to go on with my trip knowing that the BTSI wasn't working. Without this, the early version of the early 1993 version through I think 95, it'll start unless this is working. And this is to prevent it from starting, and there's a little poker there on the column if you have it in different gears that makes this work. Now after 95 they put the switch on the gear selector on the driver's side, the port side, the driver's side of the 4L60E. It's a big switch, and some of them are glued in so you can't even unplug them without breaking something. And what happens is on the after 95, that shaft wears down because it's like an indexed shaft that goes into the switch, and next thing you know, your van won't start because the switch needs adjustment. Some people do a temporary repair with good old JB Weld after they've adjusted it, if they know about it. I'm telling you these things because these are common problems that always surface with the older vans, and one day it doesn't start. You know, 95 and up, if that switch on the gear selector is slipped or comes out of adjustment or is worn. And the best thing to do is replace the shaft, which requires a transmission shop. There's JB Weld. The transmission shop to replace that worn shaft, and then, you know, you may or may not need a new switch. I would replace it, but if you try to unplug it, you're going to damage it unless you know how to get that glue to release. So these are all things you learn the hard way by making mistakes, but I learned most of this from the posts. Now the thing I'm going to do next, I'm going to take the bolts and some Loctite glue and attach the 3 bolts to my starter ring and torque it to spec. And I've rigged up something that's kind of cute that'll give me power to the starter. That way I don't have to put the key in it, and I can bump the starter to get the ring to come around when I'm installing the bolts that 3 of them I think it is. So anyway, we'll go outside and we'll have some more fun. I hope you're enjoying this video. If there's any useful information, please give me a thumbs up. I like my thumbs up. You can subscribe or unsubscribe to my channel at any time. And I need 4,000 subscribers to my channel before YouTube will monetize me. But I'm not seeking to be monetized as much as I'm trying to help fellow enthusiasts and aficionados and Astro van, Safari, GMC van fans people that have the powertrain that I'm talking about, the RPO L35 engine with the 4L60E powertrain. Because once I get my problems sorted with this van, I hope to put this van back into regular service and then later do some body work on it. Probably do it myself because I can't find a body shop in the southeast USA that's reasonable to do the rust repair above and below the windshield that I need done to stop the leaks. For now I'm using flex paste as a temporary repair. So thanks for watching. Okay, we're recording now. This is Dorman 14040, and it doesn't say the size, but they're probably either 3/8 or 7/16. I can't read it. 14040 Dorman help. I'll look that up later. I have the original bolts. They take a 15mm socket, and they have to be torqued to 46 foot-pounds, and there's only like 1 or 2 places here where I could get the socket and the torque wrench in place on either side of the oil pan, and probably would have been better had I left the oil filter off. But to rotate it, I'm going to use this rig up I have to give power through the starter switch, this little remote control going to the starter solenoid. But I can't crank it too much because once the transmission's connected, she'll start pumping oil out of the to the cooler that isn't connected. So I'll have a bloody mess here with transmission fluid. So I'm only going to do this enough to get the bolts to align. And if you look up here, you'll see that it's kind of dicey to get these lined up properly. There, I'm going to try to hold it, because you got to be in the center of that metal thing to get the bolts to align. I had one of these starter rings wear out on me because it wasn't centered at the factory when they made it. It wore on one side till the teeth were gone. So I had to get another one of these from a transmission shop. Not the torque converter, but the starter ring. And I had a dead spot and had to rotate it by hand until I got a chance to replace it. Didn't make my wife real happy when she was trying to run errands. But anyway, 46 foot-pounds is a spec from the service manual, and we'll put a little Loctite blue on there, and I'll do 1 bolt at a time. So stand by, and I'm going to pause the camera in between. And I got this side of the engine all done with the pan bolts. I'm happy with that, and I got the oil filter on it. I'll hook up the cooler later when I get the new radiator, but I have the new lines for the oil cooler, and I got to fabricate the transmission cooler lines. But all of that has to wait till the radiator comes in that I'm going to order from Rock Auto. So I'm going to pause the camera and get this first bolt done, then I'll rotate it. Okay, audience, it's 1:30 in the afternoon on the 27th of August 2024. It's a video documentary, video diary about installing a remanufactured engine into my 1994 Chevy Astro van that I've owned since new. In this scene, well, I should say I finished installing the 3 bolts attaching the torque converter to the flex plate, starter ring, whatever you want to call it. So I can move on to installing these spark plug shields, and the spark plugs are supposed to arrive tomorrow, and I ordered those online because I saved $2 a plug. So 2 times 6, that's 12 bucks in my pocket instead of theirs, with free delivery. So it pays to shop around for parts, and it's the same part. It's just whoever you buy it from, whether they charge shipping or not. So I've removed the electronic oil pressure sending unit and replaced it with a mechanical gauge, because I said that gauge had failed, but it hadn't. It was no oil pressure because of the tool I was using, and this time I'm using a distributor that's, you know, bolted in there, installed so it won't move around. But all of my electronic oil pressure senders are good. Now as soon as I turn this key on, the oil pressure is going to peg because there's no resistance there. Well, yeah, it pegged. Okay, went way too far. But when I crank it, we'll see a mechanical reading. Now I could dummy it up by putting a resistor where the sender goes, or just leave the sender plugged in. I should have done that. Anyway, we're going to crank the engine. And my gauge has failed. Okay, pause it for a minute. Well, I've used this gauge for years, but it looks like it's failed for good this time. It's only $6 online, so I'm going to order another one. And with that, I know the thread size. I think it's 1/4 inch something. It's the same as the oil pressure sender that failed, or kit. Seem to be having bad luck here. Plus my remote starter switch, I think, failed. So anyway, we'll turn it on. We got 0 oil pressure. Then we crank it. It comes right up to 50 psi. So got plenty of oil pressure. It's a good engine. Powertrain products, remanufactured. I have to take a human being break. Considering my age, I've been pushing it pretty hard today, so going to take a human being break and take care of business. Maybe get some food, run to Wally Mart, get some more essentials like bird feed for my bird feeders here on the Tropical Fruit Grove, Homestead, Florida, USA, south of Miami, north of Key Largo. I've picked up a lot of subscribers since I started this documentary. Now, the difference between a documentary and a how-to is this is not a how-to. You see all the mistakes I've made, but I'm learning, and I hope you are too. And I've mentioned a lot of things that I'm going to say more about in the future, like the grounding and bonding. But for now, I'm going to disconnect the battery and do what I got to do, and then we'll come back later. I got to cover this up with a tarp in case it rains. It may not rain today, but I don't want to take a chance. I don't want to get this engine any wetter than I have to. And I got to put some, got to do something about this rust and corrosion. And because they did nice patches, but they won't last forever in, 2017. And I got some flex paste. I'm going to put some more of it up there till I can stop the carpet from getting wet and moldy here, like it's been doing forever. Probably. I'm surprised it hasn't rusted through the floor, but must be really thick steel. So I hope it doesn't. And if it does, then I'll have to deal with it. But I know how to weld, and I want to learn metalworking anyway, so before I get much older. So audience, thank you for watching.